Audacious Kids, we are in our Holy Histories series, and we're so glad that you're here today learning with us about the man that is Samson. Who's got long hair in here? I kind of do. I do. Not quite Rapunzel, but I do have a little bit of long hair. And what we're looking at today, Audacious Kids, is how God gives us all special gifts and abilities so that we can use them and not hide them. God gives them to us. Now, when I was younger, I've told many of you this before, I unfortunately didn't have a unicorn. However, I did grow up having horses, and I used to see them all the time. I used to have to look after them, clean them, ride them, pick up the poo. It was awesome. And one of my horses was called Echo, and on that horse I used to be really good at horse jumping. So where you sat on the horse and you go over obstacles. And I was often, getting first place, second place in all the competitions that I would enter. And I used to feel quite, awesome because I was pretty good at it. And one particular day, I entered a competition with my pony, okay? And I won. And I was like, yes, this is amazing. And I felt so good, and people were clapping and cheering. And after we'd been awarded our places, what we would often do, it's called a lap of honour, where you get to go around and just kind of show off your rosettes, and just everybody continues clapping, say how wonderful you are. And on that day, I thought, yeah, I'm going around, I did amazing, well done me, well done to Echo. And what I'd not realised, I just thought I'm going to carry on going round, and I'm going to go over one of the jumps again, just to show everybody how great I am. And I was going up to it, and then all of a sudden, Echo just stopped, slammed his feet down like the brakes on a bike, and I flew over and fell off the horse onto the floor, and it really hurt. Now, what I hadn't realised is that they'd put up the jumps, put up the obstacles to a higher position for the bigger people and bigger horses that were coming up next. Anyway, my skill was still there, but it kind of went a bit wrong that day. Now, God has given us all special gifts and talents. Maybe yours is basketball. Maybe you love throwing the basketball around, and you've got incredible skills with basketball. Maybe it's table tennis. You never know. You could be a super duper table tennis person. Yours could be baking. Who loves to bake in here? Maybe God has given you that special gift and talent to use for His glory. And maybe it's knitting. Maybe you could knit me a cardigan or a scarf or even a teddy bear. You can knit all sorts of things. Now, God gives us our talents, and it was God who gave Samson his talent as well. Now, before Samson was even born, an angel of the Lord had promised his mum that she was going to have a child and that he would be given to the work of the Lord. Now, as a sign of obedience and commitment to the Lord, he wasn't to ever cut his hair, okay? This is what it must have looked like. Many years of not cutting his hair. He had long hair. And part of the deal that God had made with his mum is that he was never to cut his hair. And while he remained with long hair and his hair uncut, the Spirit of God was upon him, and it gave him incredible strength. Now, many people used to try and trick him to wonder, what is the reason for your strength, Samson? Because he was strong, he could defeat armies single-handedly. There was something so special about Samson and his strength ability. Nobody could fathom what the reason was. One day, over a bit of time, he met a lady. Ooh la la, they may say. This lady was called Delilah. Has anybody heard of Delilah before? A few of you. Until he met a lady called Delilah. And she got married to Samson, and over that time, she was trying to trick him to find out the reason for his strength. the enemies would ask Delilah, what is the reason for his strength? Can you find out? Can you go undercover as his wife and find out the reason for his strength? For a time, Samson used to trick her and say, oh, if you tied my hands up, all my strength would go. And so the enemies would do that. And Delilah would wake him up in the night and say, Samson, Samson, the enemies are here. Thinking that his strength would be defeated and he would not be able to get up. But Samson tore them apart and his strength was still there. Now Delilah was a little bit cheeky. And she said, Samson, if you really, really love me, you would tell me the reason for your strength. You would tell me I am your wife. Don't you trust me? And so we know, as the story goes, in that moment, Samson was weak. He told her the strength was in his hair. God had given him strength, and he was never to have scissors or a razor to chop his hair off. So that night, Delilah told the enemies, and they cut Samson's hair. And when Delilah woke him up and said, Samson, Samson, the enemies are upon you, he tried to get up to defeat them, but his strength had gone. He'd given away his special gift and special abilities. So what is that story teaching us? Let's not give away the gifts that God has given to us. Would we be tricked by money and fortune? People giving us loads of money saying, I'll give you £20 if you tell me, or give me your strength. I'll give you £10 if you don't bother practicing your football anymore. I'll give you another £10 if you just stay in bed and be really lazy and you don't be the best dancer ever in the world. What would it take? Samson was distracted, he was tricked, and he was misled. Now, we can very easily get misled or distracted and tricked by other people. But you know what, Audacious Kids? As we practice the talents that God has given to us, so if you love and believe God's given you a gift in football or basketball or playing a musical instrument, whatever it is, maybe it's writing poetry, whatever it is, why don't you practice the talent God has given to you? Show it off for the world to see. And as we do, we glorify and honor God. Samson, he did make a bit of a silly decision, and he asked God to forgive him. And as his hair grew back for one final gift of power to bring destruction to his enemies, the Philistines, God gave him the strength. And imagine if we were all confident to know who God had made us to be, and we worked hard at using our gifts to bring good in our world and with everyone that we meet.